How petty revenge made me a legend.
I live in one of those tiny towns where everyone knows each other's business, and gossip spreads faster than wildfire.
If a cat goes missing, half the town is out searching before its owner even realizes it's gone.
If someone buys a new car, people start speculating about where they got the money.
It's charming, in a completely exhausting sort of way. And then there's Gary. Gary is the absolute worst. If small towns had villains, he'd be ours. He runs the local auto shop, but instead of being a friendly, salt-of-the-earth mechanic, he's a greedy, two-faced scam artist with the personality of a damp sock. Overcharges people, convinces little old ladies their cars are falling apart when they're fine, and worst of all, he's a serial parking spot thief. Gary has this habit of stealing people's reserved parking spaces. Doesn't matter if there's a sign, a painted name, or even an actual human standing there waiting for a spot, he'll swoop in, park his enormous, obnoxiously shiny truck, and act like nothing happened. If confronted, he'll shrug and say, "Didn't see the sign," or my personal favorite, "You snooze, you lose." It's been going on for years. And then last month, he took it too far. Now, I wouldn't consider myself a vengeful person. But when Gary stole my reserved parking spot in front of the bakery, the spot I had paid to have marked, the spot literally labeled with my name, I saw red. This wasn't just any day. This was Pie Day. The bakery only makes their famous honey bourbon pecan pie once a month. People wake up at the crack of dawn to get it. I had pre-ordered mine, parked in my reserved spot, and was about to step inside when Gary zoomed in, parked his tank-sized truck, and strutted into the bakery before I could even blink. I stormed in after him, fuming. "Gary," I said, pointing at the window, where my name was clearly written on the parking spot. "That is literally my spot."
Gary barely glanced at me as he handed the cashier his order slip.
"Didn't see it."
"That's funny, because it's painted on the ground."
Gary shrugged. "You snooze, you lose."
I stood there, mouth open, fists clenched, rage bubbling in my soul. And then, the worst thing happened. The cashier handed Gary the last honey bourbon pecan pie. He smirked, held it up proudly, and walked out, leaving me pieless, spotless, and on the verge of committing small-town arson.
I spent that night scheming.
Gary had gotten away with his crimes for too long. The parking theft, the scams, the smug attitude, the PIE, it all had to stop.
I wanted revenge. Petty, absurd, life-ruining revenge.
After brainstorming with my best friend, Hannah, who was equally offended on my behalf, we came up with a plan so ridiculous, so beautifully stupid, that we knew it would work.
The goal?
Make Gary experience maximum inconvenience for the foreseeable future. Step 1. Secure assistance from the town's most powerful secret weapon, Mildred. If there's one thing people underestimate about small towns, it's Mildred. Mildred is a force of nature, a woman in her 70s who knows everything about everyone and has a network of informants stronger than the FBI. She has single-handedly organized half the events in town, is best friends with the mayor, and has connections so deep that she could probably orchestrate a bank heist without leaving her porch.
And lucky for me? Mildred hates Gary.
Mildred had been victimized by Gary's nonsense multiple times. He once overcharged her for a repair, claiming her car had mystery engine failure when it turned out to be a loose gas cap. She vowed revenge 6 years ago and had been waiting for the perfect moment. When I told her about the parking theft and the stolen pie, she nodded slowly, sipped her tea, and said 4 terrifying words, "It's time for war." Hannah, Mildred, and I assembled at Mildred's kitchen table, where she pulled out a notebook labeled Tactical Operations and started scribbling.
The plan? Maximum inconvenience. The execution? Small-town absurdity.
One of Mildred's secret weapons was her access to the entire town's phone directories. Nobody knows how she got it. She mobilized her network to call Gary's auto shop constantly, asking ridiculous questions like, "Do you fix wagons? My horse-drawn carriage has alignment issues. Would you install a spoiler on my minivan? It's for the aesthetic. I'm looking to modify my truck so it runs on vegetable oil. Thoughts?" The calls never stopped. Every time Gary tried to work, another nonsensical request came through. At one point, a group of retirees called every 5 minutes, claiming they needed urgent repairs for their lawnmowers. Mildred took Gary's parking spot theft personally, so she mobilized the community to reverse the crime. For an entire week, every single person in town took turns blocking his auto shop's reserved parking spot. Mildred parked her ancient, barely running station wagon there. The local youth soccer team left their bus in the space by accident. The town librarian hosted an impromptu reading picnic in the spot, complete with blankets. Gary was furious, but every time he complained, someone would innocently say, "Oh? Didn't see the sign." This part was personal. Stealing the last honey bourbon pecan pie was a high crime, and I needed Gary to suffer. Enter the bakery. Mildred called in a favor, convincing the owner to create a special one-day promotion called "Free Pie for every customer who's not named Gary." Every single customer received a free slice. Gary stormed in, outraged, demanding pie. The bakery owner smiled sweetly and said, "Sorry, Gary. You snooze, you lose." It was glorious. Gary thought he was untouchable until the town turned him into the subject of an actual parade. Thanks to Mildred's influence, the upcoming Founders' Day parade had a last-minute addition, a float dedicated to parking spot awareness. The float? A comically oversized parking sign that read, "Respect reserved spaces. Don't be a Gary." Gary had to sit there, fuming, as the parade passed his shop, people cheering and waving tiny parking signs. Gary was not handling the humiliation well. After the bakery betrayal, the phone call nonsense, the parking spot rebellion, and the parade float dedicated to not being a Gary, he was livid. Of course, this was hilarious for the rest of us. The town was thriving on the drama. Locals whispered about it at the diner, the mayor joked about it during a town meeting, and even kids started using "Don't be a Gary" as an insult. Gary, however, was plotting his counterattack. With all the petty inconvenience we had thrown his way, Gary was determined to reclaim his dignity. His first move? A furious rant on Facebook. He posted a long, barely coherent rant about how the town had turned against a hard-working businessman and that he was being unfairly targeted by a gang of haters. Mistake. Huge mistake. Within minutes, the post was flooded with comments, most of them glorious. Is this about the parking thing? Because, yeah, you deserve that. Did you really steal someone's reserved spot and their pie in the same day? Bold. You snooze, you lose. This comment alone got over 100 likes. Gary deleted the post within hours, but screenshots had already spread across town like wildfire, and now, Gary was desperate to reclaim his power. Since people were deliberately blocking his auto shop's parking spot, he decided to go nuclear. He called in a favor with one of his buddies at the county office and got a ridiculous oversized reserved parking sign installed. We're talking 6 feet tall, bright yellow, bordered by flashing lights, as if the spot were the entrance to a Vegas nightclub. It was absurd. Naturally, this only made things worse. People took it as a personal challenge. Teenagers held a car wash in the spot. Mildred parked a shopping cart there and called it art. Someone left a pumpkin with a drawn-on frowning face, labeled Gary's mood. The spot had officially become cursed, but my personal favorite moment? Gary finally tried to reclaim his honor through pie. One afternoon, Gary stormed into the bakery and ordered the biggest pie possible, loudly declaring that "no one can stop me from enjoying this." He strutted outside, pie in hand, and took the most dramatic bite imaginable, staring at the town as if to say, "I am Gary and I have pie." And then, because the universe is poetic, a seagull swooped down and stole the entire thing from his hands. I have never heard a scream so deeply existential. Gary had officially lost all remaining dignity. His parking spot was cursed, his attempt to reclaim pie had been literally stolen from his hands, and the town was so deeply invested in his downfall that someone started selling t-shirts with "Don't be a Gary" printed on them. Gary was desperate to regain control. So, naturally, he made one final mistake. One morning, Gary marched into the town hall, demanding a meeting with the mayor. His request? A formal petition to ban organized harassment against him. Mistake. Huge mistake. The mayor, who had been fully enjoying the entertainment, politely listened as Gary ranted about the targeted bullying that had ruined his reputation. And then, once Gary was done talking, the mayor leaned forward and grinned. "Well, Gary," he said, slowly and dramatically, "I think there's a simple solution to all of this."
Gary perked up. Finally! Someone with common sense. The mayor nodded.
Then, in front of the entire town hall audience, he reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a marker, and crossed out Gary's name on his personal office parking spot sign. Replaced it with, "Reserved for Mildred." The crowd cheered. Gary stormed out. Gary never fully recovered from his downfall. His auto shop is still running, but it's permanently associated with parking crime, pie theft, and petty revenge. People still call the shop with ridiculous repair requests just to mess with him. The bakery keeps a framed photo of the seagull stealing his pie by the register. Mildred now has an official reserved parking spot at Town Hall and treats it like a throne. And as for me? Well, I never paid for another pie again, because every time I go to the bakery, someone whispers, "That's the person who took down Gary," and the owner slides me an extra slice for free.